All right, I'll do very quick introductions here. Margaret Martin's the founder and CEO of Merlin Mobility. David Zakariaie is the founder and CEO of Glassic. And Jeremy Sack is the VP of the Programmatic Brain Science Institute. So we've got different perspectives. The main topic of the day is virtual reality versus augmented reality. So my first question is, why do you think your particular take on this technology is the future? Why is what you're doing really important, and why is it going to shape this industry?
Start with me?
Go for it. Ladies
All right.
first.
Let's see, Hello? Oh, there we go. So, of course, I have the augmented reality perspective here. So I think that augmented reality is the future, first of all, because it is one of the single most great enabling technologies for the Internet of Things. When you hear about waving your device around and looking at something and being able to access information about it, augmented reality is one of the key technologies that will bring that to everyone. Also, augmented reality enables us to superimpose digital content onto the physical world. So, you know, if you think at digital information that is in context, in situ, to give you precisely the information that you need at that moment. And it's a game changer for interacting in the physical world.
Alrighty. I don't think augmented reality and virtual reality should be thought of as, oh, one's going to win and one's going to lose. They're two totally separate things, and I think there's two totally separate uses for them. There's tons of stuff that we can do with augmented reality right now, both in the consumer world as well as market research and business use. And virtual reality, I mean, it's been around for a long time. It's been in gaming for a while, and now it's starting to come in market research, which is kind of backwards, because I think that the whole technology usually goes from the government to the military, and then it goes to businesses, and then it comes to the consumer. But I think with augmented reality and virtual reality, especially with the gaming world, it's moving backwards. A lot of gamers are using it. It has a lot of uses for the everyday person, and now it's slowly coming to a business. But what we're doing with Google Glass and these types of wearables, I wouldn't consider it to be augmented or virtual. I think it's more of just if we can get certain types of biofeedback types of information, then that can have a lot of use within market research.
Yeah, I mean, I think from marketing and a market research perspective, there's no panaceas. There's no silver bullet. There's a place for all different approaches, technologies. As amazing and innovative as the things we saw this couple days are, even those don't replace some traditional tried and true approaches from both a marketing and a market research standpoint. And I think what we try to do from both a virtual reality standpoint, as well as a pragmatic brain science standpoint, as well as integration of all of those tools together, is be good stewards of what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to solve a particular business problem, or we're trying to drive retention or greater engagement from a particular group of people. And I think you have to work back from there. And there's a place for virtual reality. It might not be everywhere. There's a place for pragmatic brain science. That might not be everywhere. And, you know, as much as we'd hate to admit it, there's a place for traditional scales if what's going to really drive behavior or people's rational beliefs. So again, I think it's about being good stewards of the tools, having real expertise, and real partnerships, so you marry up what's needed versus what the applications can do.
So let me urge you guys to get specific here, because I think I'm sitting in the room like, okay, that's great, but what can I do? How does this help my business? What's the why now for me? So I'd like to ask you guys, there's like one big why that you're solving for right now. What is the single most impactful why that you can address?
We're going to snake it, right? It goes this way and then goes back. Well, I think from, again, the focus of this panel is marketing. And I think that the problem that virtual reality and truly immersive virtual reality, I mean, there's a whole continuum there, solves for is you can create behavioral change. So if you want to change a consumer's behavior, you can give them immersive experiences that they can't necessarily easily have in the real world. So our CEO spoke about some simple examples. You want to put on a you're an automotive company and you want to give people an experience, you can put them on the Indy 500. You want to work on weight loss and create real change in weight loss for the betterment of society, as well as perhaps make a profit. You can set a virtual weight loss center in the back of an establishment like a mass merchant or a pharmacist, have people come, have people have repeated exposures, actually lose weight, and by the way, buy things as they walk down the aisles and have positive feelings about your store. So I think the true power of virtual reality is the ability to create behavioral change and to do so in ways that can violate the laws of physics, can violate other laws by having people fly, having people immersed, transformed, transferred. I mean, these are just things you can't do with other approaches.
Let's keep trying to drill down and be more specific still. Like, that sounds good and ambitious. What today can we do? What's right now is more powerful? Yeah, go for it.
So what we can do today is enable people to fully experience products before making a buying decision. We can enable them to visualize prototypes. We can enable them to do consumer testing. We can enable them to actually physically put a product in their physical space, interact with that product, understand all the product options before making a buying decision. So we can lessen returns for people who sell products, and we can help ensure that for the person who makes that purchase, that they're indeed getting the right product at the right time.
Our technology, like I said, isn't virtual or augmented, but so I'll say what the purpose of ours is and what we can do with it today. So what we are using wearables and this type of technology for is to learn about consumers and see things the way they see them in ways that we weren't able to do before. So, for example, with our platform for Google Glass, we can not only see what the consumer is doing and how they're doing it, but because of the fact that we're able to measure data such as eye tracking, we're able to measure the brain waves as well as a few other different types of data sets. We're able to figure out what the why is. So if your consumer is wearing Google Glass and they're in a store and they're holding if they're holding Coke and they're holding Pepsi and if they pick the Coke, not the Pepsi, we can tell you, well, is it because there was too much sugar in the Pepsi, or was it because the packaging of the Coke was a much more exciting a product for them, and we're able to figure out what they're actually feeling. So like the way we do emotion tracking, for example, is we'll literally just show you a bar graph of 26 emotions, and we'll show you the level of each one. So what our approach is to use these wearables and these types of technology to figure out what a person is doing and what they're thinking. And because of the fact that we're using brainwaves and this type of neurological data, we cut out the entire fact that they are conscious, that they are in market research. So even though they know they're part of market research, even if they want to change their behavior, we're able to figure out what the natural instinct that they would do and what they would buy if they weren't within that MR situation.
Let's talk a little bit about privacy here, as we're talking about observing acute changes in behavior. It's deeply personal. You're talking about people not even being conscious of what they're doing. How do you guys think about actually dealing in the post-Snowden area of actually treating this consumer data and privacy, which is really you're knowing people in ways potentially better than they know themselves? How do you think about that? How do you make sure that this you're being respectful?
So at Merlin, we wrap analytics around all of our applications, but we do that in a way that doesn't aggregate any personal data. The only situations where we do aggregate personal data is in a scenario where maybe you've got remote training and you're comparing the performance of two particular people as they're being trained on a piece of equipment or learning about some process. So most of the data that we track is around the actual experience itself, looking at how long it takes somebody to complete a task. Could you present the information in a more effective way to help them be a more effective worker? Or when it comes to selling products, taking a look at what are people really interested in, feature, function-wise, what product options like color, or maybe if they're putting together products with, say you're selecting Coca-Cola products and then putting them in a cooler? Is there any relationship between the products that people select, the equipment that they select, and then the location that they actually do that in? So we look at it more from statistical data as opposed to personal data.
Oh, you want me to go? I wasn't ready. Okay. Well, I mean, I think that in many respects, the same laws that apply to a lot of things hold, right? Aggregated data, if we're talking particularly about market research applications. And of course, opting in and knowing what that means. I think if we're talking about virtual reality from a marketing standpoint, a lot of the approaches that we are using today, and we're having meetings with C-level executives at Fortune 100 companies about these approaches, people would be opting into. You can develop, and knowing what that means, you could develop solutions for workplace safety. You can do weight loss. You can do these things where people know what they're doing. They understand broadly the types of data we're collecting, proxemic data, the things that they say, responses they provide. So again, I don't think there's any black box, and there's no use of the data that goes sort of beyond what's typically being done in market research in the things that we're talking about doing.
With what we are doing, well, we're tracking emotions and we're really getting all this personal data. There is never a way to tie it back to whose data it is. So we have all this neurological information on a 25-year-old female. There is never any way to figure out who that female was. So they put the glass on and they're going to the store, they're participating in the study. But the fact that we never know who it is, and they know exactly what type of information we are getting, and they are signing off on it, it solves the privacy concerns that we've had.
So with applying these tools, what's the biggest challenge you see to this being effective? What's the biggest roadblocks you need to overcome to really make these tools effective? Sure.
The biggest roadblock that we see is content. So most companies have content. They have the models that were designed to create the products, and it exists. But it typically comes from a whole variety of different sources. It might come from an agency. It might come from a product lifecycle management tool. There's just a whole variety of different avenues for that content to be created. And so in order to really maximize the digital content that they create, then there needs to be some sort of a content management system that this all goes into, where various stakeholders, within the organization have access to it, to use it in a variety of different capacities. So, from our perspective, it's really streamlining that workflow process so that when these 3D models and CAD files and this 3D content is created, that it has a path that makes it an efficient medium to use.
With what we are doing, and what the largest roadblock has been, and thankfully is starting to not be there as much, is explaining to a research company that just maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago is hopping on smartphones and mobile apps of why the wearables are the next big thing and why we should be using them now for market research rather than 4 or 5 years from now. But I think because we've been involved within market research for about a year, and what we've seen is because at the beginning we were explaining a concept, but now that we can show the research that it works and the proof and the clients that have used it so far and how successful it's been, it's a lot faster to show a client that it works and it's amazing. And of course, it doesn't hurt if we show them that, well, your Coke or Pepsi is using it, so you should sign up too.
I mean, I think in terms of barriers, I would agree some of the internally getting a hand on and getting a handle on producing the environments can be a barrier, but I actually think the biggest barrier is really one of vision and who to talk to, right? Because virtual reality, immersive virtual reality, like the things that people hopefully got to experience in the pit, there is a fixed cost that goes into producing such an environment. It's probably not as big as people let themselves imagine it to be, but it's not a $30,000 concept test. or $15,000, depends. So who do you talk to, and who can have the vision and the power to push forward those sorts of initiatives? It is really an interesting question, because at the end of the day, it's a difficult purchase for a market research buyer to make. So that's why really a lot of our conversations have been with CMOs, CEOs, because really those are the people who are able to throw the switch on that sort of fixed cost investment, and B, tend to have a bigger picture view around the marketing side of things and what something could become. So I would just say, as LRW has traditionally been a full service marketing research company. So there was a little, and there still is, figuring out of, well, who do I talk to about this? How do I go from that person to the person who could really decide something like this, and having those in productive ways that everyone feels good about.
So take a separate, you guys, taking a step out of your business, you think about augmented reality and virtual reality. Who do you see as aspiration? Who do you think is just doing an amazing job using these technologies in some other way that you take inspiration from, that helps you think about where things are going to go?
Interesting question. To be honest, I don't think we're taking inspiration out of what's being done today in the field. I think our inspiration really comes from the people we were partnering with. And I'm not here to sort of name drop partners, but we work with 2 of the 3 leading people in the world in virtual reality. One is at Stanford and one is at UCSB. And they can do amazing things in their labs that would just make your head explode. And I think that that's our inspiration, right? And one of the reasons why we think this is such a fruitful space is because bringing that same unbelievably immersive experience to consumers, to businesses, is such a ripe opportunity. And realistically, these things are not that far away from being immensely scalable, and they're already more scalable than you think. For people who did our pit demo, that, other than the curtains and all the amazing stuff that Joan helped bring, the actual stuff to produce the pit can fit in 2 suitcases that you can carry on a plane. Right? So it's already more scalable than it seems, and now when things like Kinect come out, or Samsung comes out with products, it's going to be even more so. It's going to be in people's homes. So again, I think our inspiration is, how do we take the amazingness from the academic world and transport that amazingness into the world that we all live in?
Okay, sure. I would have to say, I take inspiration from people who create the new form factors. It's all about giving people something that enables them to access information at the right time and the right place. And that may be, the phone that you carry on you. It might be some sort of wearable device. It might be some hands-free set of glasses or goggles or that sort of thing. And so I think the people who, are really going to help these technologies forge forward are those who are developing the just amazing generation of form factors that are coming into the market.
No, we're passing on. Okay, one last question for the thing. So, obviously, very interesting that Facebook bought Oculus Rift to push heavily into the world of virtual reality. Obviously, interesting with Google bringing the leading wearable product out there with Google Glass. What does the future battle look like between these kinds of companies in the space? Why are they making these big bets? What does it mean for all of us that they're pushing these 2 very different directions?
Yeah, go ahead. No, you passed on the last one, so you get to go.
Well, I think there is a very big. I think the reason, because let me go back. So if we go back about 3 years ago, Google announced we have Google Glass, and Pebble was making their watches. All these wearable devices were coming, and that kind of sparked the next wearable revolution. Because it's definitely not the first time we've seen things like Google Glass. I think his name is Steve Mann. He's a crazy man in the tech world, and he's had something smaller and more compact than a Google Glass about 15 to 20 years ago. But I think it's coming back. But the biggest difference between something like a Google Glass is the fact that it's not actually a virtual reality. It's another way for us to work with a virtual world. But then when you look at a virtual reality like their Pit and Facebook buying Oculus and these types of things, I think it's two totally different types of technology. One is you in the physical world working with the virtual world, and one is you're in the physical world, but are you really there? Because it's 100% virtual. So I think we're definitely in the next year or so will be 100% on one of these platforms. But I think the battle is which one is going to be first. Are we going to go totally 100% into virtual, or are we going to have something like the Watch or Google Glass to kind of bridge us towards the future of Oculus?
One thing is that you can render already, and you will be able to, at levels that are even more advanced, virtual worlds off people's smartphones and off people's, eventually, wearables. So imagine wearing something and having glasses that you put on that you can take with you. I mean, that's the world that is coming. I mean, in terms of the Facebook side of things, as our CEO might have mentioned, so Mark Zuckerberg went to our partner at Stanford's lab 2 weeks before he made that purchase. Probably was thinking about doing it already. I don't think it was just that one experience, but I like to think that part of it was to really experience it. And I think that is really where the connection with Facebook comes in. Facebook is trying to create user experiences, relationships, connection, and imagine the ability to mobilize their entire user base and put them into virtual worlds. And you can put people in virtual worlds in 2 different places, and they'll have avatars, and they can see each other and interact with each other. So obviously, we don't know exactly what they have in store, but I mean, I think that's the vision that they're looking at and moving towards.
Margaret, last word.
So I think with these types of applications that you need to give people a very purposeful reason to use them. That if there's not something of meaning there, that people are not motivated to do it. So I'm not going to access an augmented reality ad to be fed yet another advertisement. But I think that we have seen the Second Lives and other virtual worlds out there. And so I'll be curious to see how that progresses. But certainly, if you look at a Facebook, there's all the legal issues around it, which I'm not even going to attempt to get near. But, there certainly is value maybe in a convention setting where you look around, you can identify who people are, what their role is, that sort of thing. There are also other scenarios where you might want to be instructed on, maybe instead of having your iPad to access all the instructions in your house, you just throw on a pair of glasses when you need to figure out what all those buttons on your washer do, or how you reset the microwave clock after your power goes out. So I think ultimately it's about having purposeful applications that bring true value to the user.
Excellent. Well, I thank you all. If we can all give Margaret, David, and Jeremy a big thank you, a round of applause. Thanks for your time.